I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm excited to chat about internships during grad school, and we have some stellar panelists here with us. I'm Lauren Lyon. I'm the director of the GPS STEM program, and I'm joined by 4 amazing panelists and our moderator for today. So I will go ahead and I'm going to launch a poll just to see what your all interest is for this particular topic. So we kind of thought of 4 main areas that are a part of doing an internship while in grad school. And so we want to hear what are you most interested in hearing from our panelists about on this topic? We have preparing your advisor for you taking an internship, what the internship application process and timeline looks like, balancing your academics while doing an internship, and navigating a corporate culture. It's looking like internship application process and timeline is a top contender there. Great. With maybe balancing the academics and internships a close second. Great. Okay, I will give you a couple more seconds to fill out. There's a few of you who haven't done it, but I think there's a pretty clear winner of the internship application process and timeline being a top interest for today. So we will definitely make sure to spend a little bit extra time on that. But I will go ahead. I'm going to be here. I'm going to help on the back end. I'm going to answer some questions in the chat and help Kate, our moderator, kind of navigate that space as well. But Kate, are you ready? You feeling good to go?
Yes, I am good to go. Hi, everyone.
Pass it over to you.
Okay, great. So I want to welcome everyone to the panel discussion. And we have grad students with us who have successfully completed their internships at top companies. So I know they're all excited to share their experiences with you, some tips, some advice, the application process, all of that. We are going to bank some time for questions at the end. If someone has a question in the chat that seems really pressing, we will bring that up right away. But otherwise, we're going to save the majority of them to the end, and Lauren might jump in with some paraphrases of some questions if that seems to make sense. But if we don't get to your question right away, we will save some time at the end. Okay. So I want to do a little lightning round introduction of all of our panelists. Just quickly tell us your name, where you did your internship, and at what stage in your PhD. And then also one little icebreaker question. If you had a superpower that could benefit your career, what would that be and how would you use it? But lightning round, go. Let's do Jessie first.
Hey everyone, my name's Jessie. I'm a 6th-year PhD student in the Department of Microbiology and Molecular Genetics. I did my internship at Kite Pharma, which is a company now owned by Gilead. And my superpower would be being able to control temperatures at my will, because think of how useful that would be for experiments. That's all I'm saying.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessie. Let's go Vini next.
Hi everyone, my name is Vini. I am now a postdoc, but I defended I don't know, almost 2 months ago now. Time is just flying. I was a grad student when I did my internship. I did my internship at Eli Lilly over in Boston. And if I had a superpower, I think it would be the ability to grow new appendages because I work with my hands a lot. And so if I could increase my throughput by having 4 arms, that would be amazing. I would get
so
a lot more data done. So yeah.
Amazing. I think we could all benefit from that superpower. Yasmeen, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Yasmeen Solano. I'm now a 5th-year PhD student, and I did my internship at Abbey in the Irvine location, and I did it at the end of my 4th year. One of the superpowers I would choose would be just to know everything. Knowing everything, I think would save me a lot of time.
Agree. And look, I have this experiment I need to do. And so if I go do this internship, it'll help me complete the experiment. And he's like, okay, let's see how this goes. Like, we'll talk about it as the process progresses. And I said, okay. And so I kept all my ducks in a row. I got my science done. I was really communicative. I was like prepared for every step of the interview because it had to go perfect. It had to go exactly right. And lucky enough, I progressed through all the steps of the interviewing process for the Kite internship. And I kept him in the loop too. I was like, hey, I had my first round interview with the recruiter. And he's like, okay, my second round interview with the hiring manager. He's like, okay, but that's not it yet. Like, you still have to keep going. And I was like, yeah. And then I had the final interview with the director. And I was like, okay. And so we had to sit down and have this meeting where we talked about if I'd put my research on pause, like where I would be going. Could I afford this? Not that it's his business. He's kind of like a dad in some ways, but he didn't want me to like do something that would really put myself in a terrible position. So it was like really important that I have a reason I'm doing this, be really communicative to him about it, and like be really prepared and show him how important this was to me. So it was like, it really tested our mentor-mentee relationship, I feel like. But in the end, it all worked out. And it was all about just being open.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that it ultimately worked out and was positive for everyone involved. But yeah, pretty stressful to have to like navigate those conversations if you have someone who's, you know, a little bit resistant to it. But thank you for telling us that it's possible. Just got to be, sounds like really proactive about it. How about Vini? I know that you kind of had a different experience with this and you came in from the jump and you were like, yes, I want to do an internship, and talking to your advisor about that from the beginning as well. But I want to hear a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, I think even when you have a good advisor, it's when you get past that hump of like, will you let me do an internship or not? There's still like a lot of conversation that happens, at least in my experience, regarding like when's the best time strategically to go away for an internship. So that's kind of how that was kind of the nature of our conversations. And for us, what ended up happening was basically we scheduled my internship so that it happened at a time when I finished collecting all of the results that I needed to collect in lab. And then when I went away, it was like me finishing, putting some finishing touches on my manuscript, all like dry lab stuff that I could do on the weekends. And I was doing like my 40 hours a week at Lilly and then going to like coffee shops on like Saturday mornings for 4 hours just to get some work done on my manuscript. And then we would like, I think halfway through my internship, like mid-October, I started like in August, mid-October, we like submitted it to journals. And then it was just a lot of dry lab work essentially on the computer. So that was like the strategy that we employed. And then I did also want to mention, I had a co-intern who she had a really tough time trying to convince her advisor like throughout the entire process to let her do the internship. And what the agreement that they ended up coming to was she negotiated with our internship coordinator that we were all in contact with, and she negotiated for a shorter internship. So instead of a 16-week one, she did a 12-week internship, and her advisor was cool with that, and the internship coordinators were cool with that. So even if you're sensing some sort of friction with your advisor, make sure that you are trying to find some ways to compromise, ask your advisor, oh, this is a 12-week internship. Would you be okay if I did a 10-week one? I can talk to the internship coordinators about that. Or if there's other ways you can find leverage to negotiate kind of like the logistical aspects of the internship. Sometimes the internship coordinators are open to that too.
Awesome. That's really good to know. I'm the moderator because I don't have any industry internship experience. And so I'm learning about this along with everyone else who's attending. And it feels like these things would be, super set in stone. So it's nice to know there's a bit more flexibility there than you might think. Yasmeen, I think you applied before you told your advisor about the experience. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, thank you. So the way I got an internship was kind of networking, and I can speak on that a little bit more during the next internship application process discussion that we have. But yeah, basically I began a conversation with somebody at the company, and I just kind of like felt I got a feel for if there was an opportunity for me to come in and just kind of have some just kind of do, you know, a project. And once I saw that they were really interested in bringing me in, I was like, uh-oh, you know, I need to talk to my advisor, of course. One thing that I've always been very outspoken about with my advisor is that I'm interested in industry. And so, and my advisor knows about my past, right? In the sense that I got my bachelor's, I did a post-bac, and I started my PhD. So I never really have had the opportunity to get a job in industry. So on my resume, that was something that was lacking. So having started this kind of a networking conversation with a person at Avi, I spoke to my advisor and I told him, hey, like I began this conversation with somebody and it seems like, you know, they're willing to kind of bring me in for an internship. And then my argument was, I'm about to graduate and I'm really interested into going into industry, but my resume, I know that my resume is not as strong as it could be because I don't have industry experience. And so kind of just advocating for myself, I think I made a really good argument. I was also finishing my fourth year and I am, you know, the discussion between my advisor and I is that I'll be graduating early 2025, so in February, March. So we felt that that was an appropriate time for me to kind of like take some time away. But of course, you know, as Vinny said, and Jessie said, kind of making sure that everything was in order, publications were submitted, you know, it was nice. It was a nice time point for me to kind of step away and also just kind of have that career development during my PhD. So that was kind of my conversation. As some of the speakers mentioned, it was kind of a process in the sense that just kind of communicating with my advisor. Hey, I had a meeting with this person. Hey, they pushed me over to speak to a hiring manager. Hey, you know, I'm about to have a call with, you know, the manager I'll be working with at Avi. So just kind of keeping my advisor in the loop, my PI here at UCI in the loop. I think that was very beneficial. I think that it really showed that I had open communication and I wanted, you know, that I wanted the support from my advisors. So just kind of as Lauren highlighted, advocating for myself was really key in just preparing my advisor in knowing that this is something that I needed to take part in.
Totally. Thank you so much for sharing with us. What I'm getting a lot of is like, remember that you're doing your PhD for you and for a purpose. And it's not just, you know, to do this project in this lab, and make sure your advisor is always, you know, the only decider of what you're doing with your time. Think about why am I doing this? What do I want to do with this degree? And then plan out the map of how to get from point A to point B, right? I do want to move on since we had so much interest in the internship application process and timeline. So let's start talking about that. If anyone has any strategies for how they found their internships and or how they tailored their resumes, all those sorts of things. If anyone wants to just jump in at this point to start us off, I open the floor.
I can start. So as I mentioned, the way I got the internship at Avi was actually through networking. I did submit internships to other companies and I did get called back and I did go through that interview process. But I believe that the reason that I got my Avi internship was because of a connection I had made previously. So I would just really like to communicate to everybody on the call that really using your network and building a network can really help you find these resources or, you know, experiences. Just reaching out to, so I was on LinkedIn and I realized that a scientist that I had previously worked with as when I was doing my bachelor's was at the company. And you know, I just reached out and said, hey, I remember collaborating with you and I'm super excited to find out that you're here in Irvine at Avi, and I would just love to learn about your company. And so it was more of a, the first conversation was more kind of an informational interview. And then from there, of course, you know, in that conversation, they asked me, oh, like, what are you doing? What stage are you at? And so it really presented a moment for me to kind of, you know, speak on my experiences, kind of showcase like what do they call it? It was like an elevator pitch, right? You really got to practice your elevator pitch. And so I really had the opportunity to really show, to say all the things that I've done. And I think that conversation then kind of led into like, oh, so would you be interested in, an internship? And then just me as a person, I'm really interested in learning more. So because I did want to learn more, I asked questions. Oh, what do you have in mind? Who do you think I can work with? And at the end of that conversation, I asked, can I send you my resume? And actually the person that I was speaking to said, oh, please do. I think I have an idea of who I would share your resume with, given, all the information that you just told me about your experiences. And so that's exactly what happened. He pushed my resume forward. And then my next meeting was with the manager that I got the opportunity to work with. And so just having that scientific conversation, I think was really what gave everyone the green button to bring me into the company for a summer internship. And then it's really cool because then the people at Avi kind of communicated with the HR, they communicated with the internship kind of committee, and they brought me in. So it's kind of, to put in perspective, it's kind of like a direct admin to a PhD, right? Like, how you connect with the PI and then they bring you into a PhD program. So it was kind of, my experience was making that connection, networking, and then they brought me in directly into their kind of internship cohort. But nonetheless, I had the same experience as an intern. I had my project, I had meetings, I had trainings. So yeah, I just really want to highlight, use your network. And I think that it can be for a benefit, especially like a beneficial experience, like an internship.
Awesome. Thank you, Yasmeen. I just want to hear, now hearing that quickly from the rest of the panelists, how did you find your internship? Just like quick rapid fire. I want to compare.
I found mine on, oh, sorry, Han, you haven't spoken yet.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Han.
Okay, so I found mine on LinkedIn, actually. It's also based on networking on LinkedIn. So I know a friend, and then she's connected with somebody else, and then she was like, oh yeah, there's an open position for the internship at Merck. And then I just started to apply there, and then.
Cool. So also leading on your network, but digitally in this case. Okay, Vinny, how about you? How did you find yours?
Everyone on this panel is now, yes, we're all in each other's network now. Good point, Lauren. Yeah, so my internship, to give everyone a little bit of a sense of the timeline too, before I go into how I found mine. If you're looking for a summer internship, you should be looking to apply for those around like the fall time. And another thing about like timeline is that for the most part, grad internships happen throughout the year, and then in the summer they have like the bulk of, or at least large pharma companies, they have the bulk of their undergrads intern over the summer, which grad students can also intern over the summer. But if it's, I don't know, advantageous for you to intern not over the summer where, you don't have departmental requirements and all that, for large companies, they usually have offerings throughout the year. So keep that in mind too. But yeah, the application process is like happens way before, around that timeline that I just mentioned. For me personally, I found an internship initially with Alcon, which is a vision care company. They're based in Texas, but they have a branch, a research and development branch that they opened up recently in Lake Forest, so super close by. And I found that one on LinkedIn. I applied, I interviewed, got really far, and then they ended up going with an ophthalmologist. So I was kind of bummed out, but then the senior scientist who is on the internship project, she liked me so much that she had like a whole contract written up for me. And this was for a summer internship. And while that contract was getting written up, I was like, I don't know if this is actually going to happen or not. So I was still interviewing at other places. And the Lilly job, or the Lilly internship, I came across actually through this like virtual talent connect is what it's called, virtual talent connect, but it's just like a virtual networking thing that's through Biospace. So I don't know if any of you know what Biospace is, but it's basically like a digital news hub for biotech and pharma companies. And it has so much information. I mean, it has stuff on like insights, job market reports, where companies are hiring. It has educational resources related to like which companies are located in which areas around the US. They have career advice, and specifically what I had done on Biospace that made me aware of this virtual talent connect opportunity was to sign up for their email newsletters, which was something my PI had suggested. And specifically their like professional development email newsletter, or their like jobs one. And so through that email newsletter, make sure you read them as well, because that's another important part. But through that email newsletter, I saw that they were hosting like a virtual networking thing. I registered, which entails like submitting your CV to that platform and everything. And a recruiter from Lilly came across my CV and was like, "Do you want to chat?" And I was like, "Sure." We chatted, and he got me an interview with like scientists at the company, because he was the recruiter in HR. Interviewed with them, and I had an offer with them in like less than a week after meeting them. And so that was around like February time, but this was for a fall internship. So then it was like I had a summer internship and a fall internship offer. And based on kind of where I was with my research, it was nice because it gave me some flexibility to choose between the two. And I ended up with the fall one because I figured I was going to need a little bit more time to wrap up all my experiments. So that was kind of, long story short, like my application process and timeline.
Awesome. Okay, and then next, Jessie.
I found my jobs on both LinkedIn by setting alerts for the areas where I wanted to be doing my internship. I was really interested in staying in California so I could be close to my partner, as well as the company websites themselves. So there's like a unknown known list of like the top 10 pharma biotech companies in the US, and I wanted to go for a company that was well known so I could have it on my CV as having the experience. So I definitely aimed for those companies. And it was just like this unofficial list from like Forbes or something. You could like Google it, top 10 pharmaceutical companies. So you can also apply directly on their websites. And like Vinny was saying, they start releasing them, those positions for their internships in the fall-ish, and aiming apply during fall and winter. But also I wanted to say I had no connections and I didn't have any networking, and I still got my internship position. So networking is great and good, but it's also not definitely needed in order to get an internship position. So it's great, but don't panic.
Okay, great. So we have the whole variety of, came in with a ton of connection already, a ton of networking, knew the people, all the way down to just apply. So that's very encouraging to hear. Han, I think you had a little bit more to share about your application process specifically.
Yeah. So I am in the chemistry department, so the application process might be a little bit different. So in my case, I have to have my CV and research summary ready before the application, because they always ask for that information before give me an interview. And then when I have an interview with them, I have to go over a 30 minutes presentation about my research. So it seems like a little bit more intense, but if you are planning to have a research, or I mean like an internship experience, I would highly recommend to have those things ready, because you don't know when you will need those things. And the best thing is you have it ready and then keep revising it. Keep talking to other people and revising those information, because there's always room for improvement. And then it depends on the company. You might also writing your resume in a way that the company like to see the skills so that they can hire you according to that skill set as well. And for the timeline, in my experience, I feel like it's the best to do it in your third year or fourth year, because in the third year, in our department, we just finished our candidacy exam. And then at that time, then you can have a lot of time to learn about the company. Or the fourth year is when I start to apply for jobs, and then people know about me a little bit more. So when I go to a job market, I also can use the networking. And at Merck, actually, during the summer, they have a lot of activities, networking, like summer crash course for us to study. So I feel like for internship, maybe you want to participate during the summer. So all those programs are available to you during that short period of time, and then you can learn the most that way. So that's in my experience.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's amazing information. Does anyone have anything that like they weren't aware of when they were going into this that kind of became clear during the process that you wish you knew about?
I have oh,
Um,
Vinny does.
oh, yeah, sure. I'll speak on it real quick. So many things. Because I feel like the internship like infrastructure at least here at UCI is like very lacking. At least when I was looking for guidance, I was like reaching out to grad students who had previously graduated, who had previously done internships, and there's not really like a guide that really tells you about stuff. But anyways, that being said, make sure your ducks are in a row with housing and double check on that, because if you don't enroll in units, they think that you're done. And me and my roommate had gotten like email saying that she was going to get a new roommate soon because I'm no longer enrolled in units, even though I like had reached out to housing and had like email receipts for everything, but apparently someone missed something on their end. So make sure you do your due diligence and like double check with them before you leave. The other thing is that internships are commonly on like a semester basis and not a quarter basis like the UCs. So make sure that the paperwork that grad division gives you, make sure that you specify exactly when your internship dates are, because I think they just do leave of absences like by quarter. Let's see what else. There's also this like point of leverage that I wanted to make you guys aware of, wherein throughout like in the fall, spring, and winter quarter, your advisor is paying like tuition and fees for you. And so one point of leverage that you guys can use is if you go away during that time, your advisor is going to be saving extra money as compared to if you go away over the summer where they don't have to pay tuition and fees for you. So that's like maybe something to think about on the back end that we don't really like see or touch at all as grad students, but it's a point of leverage that you can use as you're going away. Um, there's so many oh, if you don't enroll at any units, you're gonna not have health insurance. So make sure that wherever you intern, you are either provided health insurance or that you buy your own. That was something that I didn't know going into it. So yeah, and if I have any other things that I remember, I'm just like spitfiring right now. So make sure you're taking notes on this stuff.
Yeah, feel free to hop back in if you think of something that you forgot. But Jessie, I think you also had some surprising logistics or something of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I avoided a lot of what Vinny experienced by doing my internship in the summer, because if you are taking credits in the spring, you automatically get summer health insurance. So that was taken care of. I didn't have to report to housing where I was, so they didn't even care if I was taking credits or not during the summer, which I wasn't. And my department was like really helpful, and I told them, hey, I'm doing my internship, and they're like, no, don't worry, okay, we're going to fill out all the paperwork, we're going to do everything you need to do, we got you. And I said, well, that's a stress reliever, okay, thank you. So I think maybe Vinny just got a tougher hand, and it's not as chaotic if you do it in the summertime. I feel like one thing that I didn't know was like so crucial to my internship experience was my recruiter, who I met initially, who did my screening interview, ended up being like so important to my experience and to the opportunities I had after my internship. So like maybe figure out the role the recruiter you're working with plays in your company. But for me, like if I wasn't nice, which you should never not be nice to someone, but if I wasn't nice and open and friendly and invited my recruiter to my final presentation, I don't know if I would have had such like a really great like next steps after my internship ended. So just keep in mind, you never know who's going to be important in your process and in your internship and after.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. I think that was super insightful. Want to move on to our next topic, but quickly, we did have a question in the chat that was, how do you even find internships on LinkedIn? Is there like an internship section? And Yasmeen and Lauren both answered. Yasmeen said that she has seen some under jobs, but the title says intern. And then Lauren says you can actually filter for experience level and filter for internships. So that's really helpful because it's really intimidating to know where to even start with these things. So now that we are in the internship, I want to hear about how you all kind of managed. You're still doing a PhD while you have this whole internship going on. And I kind of want to hear about your strategies for navigating all of that. Yasmeen, do you want to tell us about your experience?
Yeah, thank you. So the approach that I decided to take was to just fully invest myself in my internship. Of course, Avi, the Irvine location is very close to UC Irvine, so I could have came back to lab and I did a few weekends, but in reality, at least the experiments that I carry out, they're multi-day experiments. So to come back on a Saturday and have to come back on a Monday, but not come back on a Monday was really difficult. So there was at one point I just said, you know what, I'm going to just fully invest myself into my internship and really just become part of the company during this time. And I feel like I really did that. I think Han mentioned that, in the summer, these companies host events and I took part of their events. I did networking, I did community service. And so I guess my take on just kind of answering this question would be just to fully invest yourself. I think during this time, I really expanded my network. I really literally went around the company. And as Jessie mentioned, I was nice, I was friendly, I was asking questions. I wanted to learn more about the company. And I think that during my time at the company, I really did that. And everybody's super welcoming. Everybody's super happy, because there's work-life balance. So, so everybody was just willing to share. And I just kind of, took that and I kind of learned what I could at the company. And so I met with people that I wasn't necessarily working with, but made that kind of nice introduction. And so I think that just really investing yourself was, at least in my experience, was really investing myself in the company during my time there, focusing on my project as well, right? Because we're there to do a job and really carrying out the study and getting good results, I think was like really telling of what I can do. And I think that was my goal. And I was really happy to accomplish that.
Amazing. That's so cool to hear. Vinny, can I hear about your experience next? Balancing these things?
Yeah, so it's kind of like balancing the industry responsibilities and academic ones.
Yeah,
For the most
exactly.
part, yeah. I mean, for me, I think the angle that I kind of approached this, I briefly mentioned already, which was I had an agreement with my advisor, and we really wanted to get my first author publication out for the bulk of my PhD work. So when I was away, it was like I said, I was doing 40 hours a week at Lilly, and then on the weekends, I was just doing what I had to do to get my paper pushed through. Um, and I think aside from that, aside from that, it was just kind of like making sure I had an undergrad, or my undergrads who I had been working with for 2 or 3 years already, making sure they were maintaining my fly stocks. I work with fruit flies, making sure they were maintaining my fly stocks back in the lab. And I this is a little bit more personal, but I also set up an arrangement with my roommate so that she would turn my car on so that I didn't come back with a dead car battery. So it's I don't know, there was stuff like that too. But yeah, I feel like I kind of already spoke on that, so I don't want to take too
Yeah,
much more time.
totally. But the gist is you're kind of living two lives at once and trying to balance those things, which can be difficult, but it's not for a super long time. So seems like survivable. Han, how about you? How did you approach navigating these two things?
I think the best way that works for me is have a list of what you need to do and make sure that you know the deadlines that you need to complete those tasks by. And then you just go over these things based on priorities. Like, is there a job opening now? Okay, I need to work on my presentation. Is there a paper coming out? Okay, I should read about this so I learn about my research. And then also along the lines, I also communicating with my professor about job finding and ask him for advice about my presentation. So I think, yeah, overall for me, just have a plan and ranking the priorities of the things that you need to do so that you don't feel overwhelmed, because sometimes I feel overwhelmed because during the internship, people don't say anything, but I think secretly they expect you to participate as much as you could. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you all so much for sharing your experiences. I just wanted to ask one more thing. If you had any time management tools that you thought were helpful during this time, since you're juggling these two lives, if anyone wants to hop in.
Google Calendar works well for me. Or like if you work in the company, you always have Teams or something, because you will be able to request meetings with other people, and then you see exactly when it happens and who you're going to meet, so that you also plan to learn about that person before that meetings as well. So Teams calendar or Google calendars, those.
Great. Does anyone have any more that they want to share about this balancing, or we can move on to our last main topic? We're good. Okay, great. So the last thing we wanted to bring up to you all was navigating the corporate environment, since we all know that, you know, the academic world and the industry world, there's a lot of differences. And when you've been immersed in the academic world for a long time, a lot of these things can be surprising, or just you don't hear about them and you kind of have to learn by experience. So hopefully our panel attendees can learn from y'all's experience instead of learning themselves. Jessie, do you have something to add about your experiences adapting to the corporate culture?
Absolutely. So industry was like a completely different world for me. It was like jumping from something I'm used to and comfortable in to learning. It's like being in a different country almost. There's like lingo that you don't know. There's resources that everyone seems to know how to access, but you don't. And there's like hierarchies and structures that I just didn't understand. And then there's like these new job titles. There's someone called the knowledge manager at my company. And I was like, what's a knowledge manager? So I think that it's key to go in and ask questions. If someone says an acronym and everyone's like, oh yeah, RLT, yeah, RLT increase, RLT decrease, and then you just like text or like teams your manager, you're like, hey manager, what does RLT mean? They're like, oh, it means this. My company actually had an entire SharePoint page. I don't even understand it still. SharePoint was like this secret internal website that you could only access from the company. Don't ask me about it. I don't get it. And there's like this whole directory where you could look up terms that were specific to the company. And I was like, glad we have that. But it was just so strange. But I think being polite, like we've talked about many times now, asking questions when appropriate, and being your own like investigator. Yeah, highly secure work laptops. It scanned my face every time I opened it. Anyway. But like just being inquisitive. Don't let something that's confusing stay confusing. And I just think it's key to be curious, because it's going to feel different and strange, but ask questions and try to find answers yourself if you feel like you can. But if you can't, then write it down and ask someone later, because it's a completely different world that
Great. Thank you, Jessie. That is very insightful, and it does sound super different. Yasmeen, do you have something to add about your experience adapting to corporate culture here?
I'll just to adapt. I think that I adapted because I was just so excited. So like my comment was, you know, I just kind of fully invested myself into the company. You know, one thing that I needed to adapt was like here in my PhD, I manage like 4 experiments at a time. I run, you know, I'm just like book, running here, there. So one thing that I had to kind of do was actually slow down while I was at the company, because I had weekly meetings with my manager and I had all these ideas, and I was very much like, oh, I can get this done by end of day. I can give you those results, you know, blah, blah, blah. And they were just kind of like, well, let's just take care of this first, you know, and then he was like, and then we'll just see what happens next. And then I was like, but I don't have time. I only have 12 weeks. But I really actually in this manner, I did have to adapt. And this was kind of funny for me, because I would, you know, kind of talk to my partner and be like, oh my God, they probably think I'm crazy because I'm coming in and I'm like, I could do this, I could do that, I can do this. And but it's just like a change of pace, you know, that is really exciting. I think that if your PhD is kind of hectic and you manage undergrads, you manage this, you manage that, I think that getting into a company where you start to learn that your experiment is important, the data you get is important, but it's not going to make or break the company. It's not, you know, you're not the only scientist that's responsible for pushing something forward. It's a team effort. And I think that in this manner, I had to just kind of like sit back and adjust and slow down. But nonetheless, still, as I always highlight, still get the data, still get the results. But it was just kind of funny, right? Because I was like, I can do this, I can do that. But yeah, that's how I had to adjust.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, everything runs differently in different spaces. And I think the things we get used to doing in our PhD are not necessarily what we're going to be doing forever or how things run forever. Even, I mean, individual labs in PhDs run so differently. So makes sense. Does anyone else have anything to add about their experience with the corporate world and how it was different? Yes, Vinny, love the hand raise system.
Yeah, I just wanted to give two things, and it's seeing as we're like kind of getting to the end, they're kind of like the two things that I've identified that was like my favorite part about my internship, and then like the least favorite thing that I kind of encountered during my internship. So I'll start with the bad first, so that I end my little segment with a good note. But the bad thing is I definitely noticed, at least as it relates to like research in industry, I definitely noticed that like stifling of intellectual like questioning and intellectual exploration that like our PIs or some of our higher ups tell us that like they value in academia. And I didn't really necessarily know that it would that I would encounter like its devaluation when I went to industry. I didn't really expect to be like hit with it, but essentially when I got there, I was like working on this project. I was reading a bunch of literature. I was so excited to like think about like, you know, how to answer some of these questions, like, you know, the most pressing questions, but that's not what like an industry like research team is trying to do. They're trying to, after they've talked in their like higher up circle, after they've talked with all of them, and then they've probably are getting like a bunch of input from academic PIs around the world, and they've developed their strategy. You as an intern are working on that strategy, and like master students, bachelor students, new PhDs or like industry postdocs, you are all working on the strategy that they develop. And so unless you're like, you know, an upper level scientist or somebody in like a supervisor role, or a more managerial role, you're not making decisions about what direction the research goes in. And that was something that like kind of hurt me a little. And I was like, I don't know, just a little bit taken aback by it. My PI or my supervisor was always very like, yes, those are great questions, but that's what the, you know, academic PIs are doing. But anyway, so that was like my most negative experience from it. And then I think my most positive one, which is a little bit more about this like corporate environment thing, is that everyone in industry, at least in my experience, and I've said this recently, and somebody was like, "Oh, there's some like, you know, not so nice people in industry," but at least in my experience, the people that I was like interacting with in industry were all so friendly, so willing to help, very happy like with their jobs, and like we would socialize outside of work too. Like there were frequent out of work socials, really like designed to build rapport amongst like the people and teams that were working together on certain questions. And again, at least in my experience, I have not really felt that within my department. And I think my department is a little bit like has a little bit of a historical, is a little bit historically notorious for this. But you know, like I see PIs sometimes in the hallways and I like wave to them and they're like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "I know you know who I am." I mean, they don't say that, but you know, they don't wave back or they don't even give me a smile or something like that. So again, my department's a little bit notorious for that. But like um I don't know, that was something that I really appreciated about industry was that everyone was so friendly. And again, we had all these like social things. that we would do, and it made me really comfortable with asking them for help or asking them for guidance while I was doing my like actual core job duties. So that was really great. There was also like a really big, I feel like in academia, we talk about like DEI a lot, but I don't really like see really like big events that like are centered around DEI initiatives a whole lot in academia that a lot of people like attend. And at Lilly, those were like constantly happening back and forth, and everyone would actually like go to these things and get together, and they'd be like, "Hey, are you going to, this thing at 2 o'clock? I'm really excited for it, blah blah blah." And there'd be so many incentives for us to go to. So, um, yeah, there was a lot on that front as well.
Great, thank you so much. Those were both super insightful. So I really appreciate you all sharing. We do have some time for questions. I do want to say if you guys have anything else to add about corporate life before we move on to the questions, now is a great time. But otherwise we'll go on. Yes, Han, you have something to add?
Yeah, I have a small thing. So
No
I
problem.
was talking to my hiring manager, and he actually told me one thing that I think it's kind of important, because I am a person who's like very shy to ask people to help. And he say that the company pays you a lot of money to get the job done. And that means you will have to use any resources available or anyone there who know about, anything that relating to your job in order to get your work done. So don't be afraid to ask people nicely about, their help. And if you want to be like appreciative of their help, maybe writing them a note card or buying them like some small gifts in order to show your appreciation later on. But it would be best to, learn how to ask for help, because later we cannot know everything, and then everyone knows a lot of other things that we might need. So learn how to ask for help, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I think as PhD students, there's a lot of emphasis on you drive your project, you make everything happen, and it's not going to be like that, everywhere. So that's really helpful insight. Okay, so now I want to open the floor up for questions from our participants. If you have questions for individual panelists or just broad questions that anyone could answer. I know we already have one in the chat about requiring visa sponsorship. I'm not sure if any of you have experience with that, but if you do, feel free to answer this question.
I can chime in here too,
I
or
don't.
Jessie, go ahead.
Oh, perfect. Oh, you should go.
Okay. Yeah, so or if you're using your like your OPT and things, it shouldn't be an issue during the interview process. It costs them nothing to hire you through that process, right? And so when I have spoken with recruiters, especially for internships, it's not really a concern whether they can extend it and offer sponsorship. I mean, that's going to be different, but as a STEM, especially, you're going to have several years post an internship that you can continue to work. And so I want to say never, but just to be sure, I'll say rarely have ever heard that be an issue for internships. Just make sure you're working really closely with the International Center to make sure all your ducks are in a row with applying. And I know that can be one of the factors is just making sure timing wise everything is through so that all the paperwork can get through in time. But yeah, it shouldn't affect your application process. And there was another question about, and it was sent to me privately, but how much did you all share, or do you feel like you should share in the interview process about personal life? Like, should you be transparent about those things? Do you keep it strictly professional? What was your experience like in that interview process?
Jessie.
Yeah. I kept it strictly professional. I did not share anything I didn't need to. In fact, I wanted to make sure I kept all my chips in my pocket so that I could use it. And so one benefit I was eligible for was a relocation stipend because they were paying for housing for the students for the summer. So had they known that I could, I don't know. I kept all the information to myself. I didn't like not answer a question if they were like, what did you do this past weekend? But I wasn't like, I'm married, I have a husband, I have 2 dogs, I'm willing to drive this far if you give me money. I think just be.
Great. Thank you, Jessie. How about you, Yasmeen?
Yeah, so during the interview process, I just kept it professional, talked about the science, answered questions about experience. And they don't really ask you, especially like in industry, like people know what to ask and what not to ask, hopefully, right? So hopefully you don't encounter any kind of awkward questions during your interview process. But one thing that I would like to note was like once I got the internship and once I was in contact with my manager, and in terms of scheduling, I had a friend tell me you don't need to give too much information because I have a child that I need to pick up right from daycare and drop off and pick up. So my friend's suggestion to me was like, just tell them you work from 9 to 5 or whatever the schedule is. But I as an individual felt inclined to say, oh manager, due to this reason, due to me having to drop off and pick up my child, I can work these hours to these hours. And I felt comfortable with it, but of course, like it's not necessary. So it's just kind of like dependent on how you feel. Yeah. But that's the most like personal I got.
Great. Thank you, Yasmeen. Han, you have something to add?
Yeah, so I think in general, think about what are the aspects of your life that you want to share that makes you professional, I think, because when I talk to other people who helped me with my interview, they also point out something that like you should not share about the details of like that makes people can have bias about you. Keep it as professional or as like job related as possible. If the personal things that will add into like showing who you are, like you're hard worker, if you're like professional and you're like friendly, teamwork, or anything like that, you should share. But any other personal information that doesn't help to show you're a professional person, you're engaging, then I highly recommend to go over that with someone else before thinking about sharing it.
Great. Thank you all. Want to open up? We maybe have time for one more question, maybe.
If there are no more, I can touch on this subject too, but if we have more questions, please somebody else ask.
I guess on the subject of interviews, what kind of questions did you guys get asked?
Gosh, to be honest, I don't really remember what questions I got asked. It's been a while. I mean, there's always the tell me about yourself, and that one's like really common. And I think I'm sure a lot of you guys have read on how to answer this, but the long story short with it, I think best practice is kind of outline your professional career and as it relates to the question that was most recently asked, infuse some of your personal life in there if it had some sort of like big impact on directions that you took at forks in the road with your professional career, because then it does endear you a little bit more to your interviewer and humanize you, and that is an important part of interviewing, is showing who's interviewing you that you're also like a human being and that you have empathy and that you're not just like solely going to be going in there and focusing on the work and not really like wanting to develop any sort of rapport with your teammates that are working on the same projects as you. So that was certainly a question I got asked. Lots of like behavioral interview questions, like tell me about a time when you had a conflict with another lab member. How did you resolve it? That kind of stuff. It's another big one.
Great.
Yeah, and I think when I was preparing, I had like a Word doc of like top 10 interview questions, like behavioral interview questions, and like how I would answer them. And I literally recited those to make sure I hit like really good points with that. So that's a good strategy in terms of preparing for interview questions.
Totally. All right, we have reached the end. I think Yasmeen, you might have had something to add. I just want to wrap up for anyone who has to take off right now, and say thank you so much to all of our panelists for your amazing insights. This has been super informative for me, so hopefully it was for the rest of our participants as well. And I want to encourage you all to connect with the panelists on LinkedIn and otherwise, and I think they would all be happy to continue to answer your questions personally, and add them to your network. We heard about how important networking is, so it's a great time to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you all. And thank you to Kate for moderating.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.